Every new year, I make the unoriginal resolution to get fit, to get lean, get some body definition, get into a workout regimen, and ready for the whole entire new year. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to exercise, and it's going to be amazing. And typically, I usually fail about the third week into the new year, but this year's different because I have a goal. This year, I am going to skate naked in August on my 50th birthday. That is my goal. And originally, my goal was to be able to drop into a vert ramp for my 50th birthday. But that was before I broke my ankle. And then when I realized I'm having a hard time just learning to drop in, which means you just go from the top and just drop in. I can roll into bowls, but I can't drop in. And when I realized how hard it is for me to do that, or how uncomfortable I am just rolling back and forth starting from flat, I thought that's a little bit of a lofty goal. I think that's a little bit too lofty for me. Even if I survived it physically, I think I'd have some sort of heart attack just getting to the top of it, looking down and trying to mentally prepare myself would be a little bit too much for me. So I have changed it to I'm just going to skate naked for my 50th birthday. But with that said, I want my body to be body ready. And I have prepared I'm kind of in a little skateboard gang. It's sort of 50 and up year olds. And I'm the only girl in the gang. And I told my buddies, I said, here's what we're doing. Come August, we're all skating naked. So they're on the job of finding us a skate park or a private bowl where we can all skate and have a party, because I don't want any of us to get arrested or get tickets for indecent exposure, whatever it is you get in trouble for forgetting to wear your clothing. But I'm thrilled. And I love the goal because even if I have a bikini on or whatever, and I'm definitely going to have my pads on, they'll all be padded up as well, head to toe, helmets, elbow pads, knee pads. We are going to skate naked, and I need my body to be body ready for that event. The funny thing is, as I'm putting on a separate note, I was putting together some skate videos for Sandler to put on his Instagram. And as I'm doing so, something pops up, and I don't know if it's my phone reading my mind as it does, or has overheard me making my plans for my skating naked birthday party. But oh my gosh, something pops up in regard to Naked Pickleball. And I about fell off of my bed laughing, thinking, well, first, the visual. And it's not something I wanted to visualize, was the people I play pickleball with playing naked. Not because they're unattractive people, but it's a much more conservative group of people than the people I skateboard with. And also, it's quite a bit older of a crowd. And I read up on it, and I don't know if it's a real thing or not, but it was saying that resorts across the country are offering up the option to play pickleball without clothes. And all I kept thinking was, pickleball's just not really a fluid sport like skateboarding is. Not that seeing a bunch of 50-plus-year-olds on skateboards naked is going to be a beautiful vision, but funny and fun, and sort of it's a lot more of a free-spirited sport. Pickleball, you've got a small court, and you're stopping, starting, running. I mean, it's not a very fluid-looking sport. I mean, unless you're one of the top-notch players in the country. I don't think it's going to look real good. I'm Nikki Lynn Chase, and this is my podcast, Adult Chicken, and it's about navigating life's unexpected, clothed or unclothed. These are my stories. This is my journey about being a single mom to two special needs kids. Both skateboarding and pickleball for me are things I'd never done before. I'd say pickleball's a new thing, but I think it was invented in like 1965 or something. So it's been around, and growing up a tennis player, when we weren't on the courts, or if we needed to sort of entertain ourselves, we would build mini tennis courts, which essentially it's the same thing that we were playing with tennis rackets, not little paddles. And also we'd travel a lot to go see all the miscellaneous pseudo uncles we had in various parts of the Caribbean. God knows what they were doing. But we'd go to Barbados quite frequently. And in Barbados, We had a bunch of friends that we had met over the years, and they were locals, and they would build little mini tennis courts. I think they called it street tennis there, and they'd play with wooden paddles and whatever ball they could actually come across, whether it was a tennis ball or sometimes it would be a smash ball or racket ball, whatever they could come across. Very resourceful. They'd put these little courts together. But my brother was sold on the fact that we invented it. But really, we'd gone to the islands, seen how they had put things together, and came back and played with our friends. But my dad and brother kind of act like they invented tennis. They know everything. In their minds, they know everything about it. They are the best at it. And I was the suckiest at it because I destroyed the family's dream of becoming the tennis prodigy I was expected to be. I disappointed them immensely, really in every category of life. But the funny thing is, both my dad and brother, tennis has carried them through. My dad is now 85, my brother's 51, and it's what they have continued to do for their entire lives. My brother's still, he's a tennis pro or teaches tennis. My dad, up until about, I think, 2 years ago, was teaching tennis, skiing during the winter months, tennis during the summer months. And I was the disappointment. I didn't play tennis. I was the rebel of the family. I did when I was a kid, and then I just didn't anymore. But what I found is anything my dad told me not to do, I would do it, and something great would come from it. Pickleball was no different. I had called him years ago when I wanted to revisit. I wanted another activity other than riding my bike, because at the time I was riding my bike everywhere, but it was for transportation. And so I didn't see that as sort of a fun activity. I saw that as a mode of transportation. And I also was running a lot, but I wanted to change it up. I wanted an activity, and sort of a social one at that. So I'd asked my dad if he could get me a tennis racket so I could go at least just hit against the wall. When the kids were in school, I would ride my bike and I'd go hit balls against the wall. And then a friend of mine, a fellow parent at the elementary school where my kids went, he would go with me. We'd meet up at school and then we'd go hit balls, but against the wall. He had a little bit of a tennis background too, and I had told him, I can't play with you. We can go hit balls together, but I can't play with you because apparently I suck at it. Like the last time I played was when I lived in Colorado, and my dad told me it wasn't a sport I should revisit. So I was mortified. It had stuck, and I was afraid of what my game wasn't anymore. And he started talking about this sport called pickleball, and I'd never heard of it before. And he said his parents were really into it, da 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 da. So at one point, I called my dad and I said, "What is this pickleball, Dad?" And he said, "Oh, that's for old people who don't know how to play tennis. Don't get into that, it'll ruin your tennis game." And I thought, oh, so I'm definitely going to get into it because you're telling me not to. But also, you told me I didn't have a tennis game the last time we hit balls in Colorado. So you know what? What could it possibly ruin? And then I kind of forgot about it because I wasn't running into people who were playing. I didn't know where pickleball courts were, but I started to hear about it a little bit more and more. But I still had no idea. I knew you played with a wiffle ball, and that's about all I knew. And I knew it was kind of a cross between racquetball and tennis, but you were on a mini court. So a couple years later to present, I'm walking, I was exercising, I'm going down the street, and I run into a neighbor of mine. We start talking and we start realizing that we both come from tennis backgrounds, and she's telling me her story about tennis, and we're swapping tennis stories. We're swapping where'd you play. Like any sport, it becomes a very small world when you are part of that sport, and if you're even close in age, you probably know a lot of the same people. So we're just having this awesome conversation about tennis. And she said, "Have you ever played pickleball?" And at the time, I was recovering from my ankle, my broken ankle, and she had just had surgery on her shoulder. So we're talking injury. And she asked if I'd ever played pickleball. And I said, no. Oh my gosh, I'd forgotten about that sport. I'm dying to play. I've heard all about it, but I've never played. And in my head, I'm thinking my dad told me not to. So it's definitely something I want to do because I'm sure it's awesome. Anything he says not to do is probably the best and greatest thing that I have not tried yet. And so, yeah, I'd love to play. Okay, well, I'm going to invite you. We play in the neighborhood. And I thought, oh, this is awesome. So I get my invite and I couldn't be more elated. Of course, we're going skateboarding that day. So I'm half skater. I'm from the waist up, I'm a skater, which means I just have some probably punk rock band t-shirt on or something like that. From the waist down, I'm tennis. So I've got my tennis skirt on and I've got my tennis shoes on. And I am ready to play. I can't wait. So after the first day I play, the first maybe hour or two that I play, I'm hooked. I'm done. I am sold. I want to play pickleball all of the time. I love it. And I knew I needed to get used to the overwhelming difficulty of keeping score. That to me was the hardest part and the most intimidating part of pickleball. I was terrified. I thought, how in the world? It is the most complex scorekeeping system I've ever seen or tried to keep up with. And the other thing I had a hard time with was getting used to the paddle size because it's half the size of a tennis racket. But I loved it. And I knew the second I played, I was hooked. And I called the friend that I used to hit tennis balls against the wall with, who had originally suggested it. I said, oh my God, I played pickleball for the first time. It's freaking great. And he said, oh yeah, I've been playing. And he gave me his rating. He said, I don't know, what did he say? He's like a 4.0 player or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I found myself doing what used to annoy me with any and everybody that was training for, say, a marathon, where they would talk about their runs. And I'm thinking, your run is not interesting. Like, you're literally running. Like, why is that interesting? But it's that pride. It's the excitement you feel and the accomplishment that you feel. And I started feeling it with pickleball. Same with skating. I'm like, you're no different than a runner who's achieving their goal. You go skating. This is all new to you, so the progression is there. And just like skateboarding, no one wants to talk skateboarding. If you don't skate, you don't know what it feels like to roll into a bowl. Skating looks really easy. It looks simple. It's the most difficult thing I've ever done, and it's the scariest thing, and it's the closest to a meditative state I've ever been in because you have to focus so hard on not falling. It's crazy. And no one wants to talk about it. If they don't do it, they don't know what you're talking about. If you do it, you know the feelings, and the same is true of pickleball. You start picking up on strategy. You start thinking when you start hitting the mini milestones of just, you feel accomplished if you can keep score for the first time. That's hitting a crazy goal. I start wondering, and in fact, I went home and Googled, do people get injured playing pickleball? Because there's a lot of footwork, and of course, it was kind of killing my ankle, but I'm like, maybe it's making it stronger. But there's a lot of quick movements involved. And sure enough, a lot of injured players play pickleball. And so you've got that factor. It's also a lot of older people are playing because there's not as much court to cover. So you've got that factor. Then I was overwhelmed with the whole, yeah, everybody's getting injured because, I mean, you've got the age factor, you've got all these different factors, and it's a sport, and it's a new sport. So I'm sure the statistics have gone way up as far as injuries go. But even though it's an extremely accessible sport, and really you don't have to have much to play, meaning there's not a whole lot of equipment. You need a net, you need rackets, of course, and wiffle balls. But it's the finding a place where you can play. That's the tricky part. I mean, you can play anywhere, but the problem is it's safer to play on sort of like skateboarding. You can do that anywhere, but you want good cement. You want a decent court where it's not uneven, so you don't run the risk of even a higher rate of injury. But we've got this place, and because the space or the courts are so hard to come by, it's to be kept very underground, because the alternative is you go to a place where pickleball takes place, like a facility or something, and that's where it's so popular that you have to play king of the court. So you are playing to win. You're not playing for fun, you're playing to win. And everybody gets very, very competitive. And at king of the court, you only get to stay for as long as you can win. It's the only way you get court time. And so that gives me angst. That makes me feel uncomfortable. And it kind of takes a little bit of the fun out of playing. And it's a sport called pickleball, for crying out loud. I feel like it should just always be fun. But the funny thing is, I notice I do get very competitive. It brings out my competitiveness, if you will. And one day we were playing at our courts, and this older lady came. She had to have been in her late 70s. And she's kind of looking around, gazing. She starts sort of talking, and we all get real tight-lipped. Like, we don't want this lady to bring her friends in on this is our territory. We all got really territorial. And for good reason, right? I mean, she wanted to play, but she starts talking about all of her friends, and she pulls out her phone and starts taking pictures. And it was kind of like we were celebrities getting caught doing something where we didn't want the hordes of paparazzi coming in if we were celebrities, but instead we were pickleballers, and we did not want anybody coming in to take over our little space. This was our sanctuary. This is where we were playing. We were here first, and you are not to come. And we've got just our little spot where we play. We're not allowed to tell anybody where it is. You might mention you play pickleball if you meet somebody, but you do not mention where you play. It's sort of like being part of a clubhouse where you do not let anybody know where that clubhouse is. And one day we're playing, and there is this man, a homeless man, and he's known to be a little bit violent, and he's a little mouthy. He's very mouthy. I don't like if and when he's around and my kids are there, because he says really scary, unnerving things, and he talks about things that no one wants to hear anybody talk about. And it's just scary because obviously he's suffering from some sort of mental illness, and it's frightening. And that particular day, he was kind of threatening people, and you don't quite know if it's something he's going to act on. It's unnerving. But we had dealt with him that day, and all of a sudden 2 squad cars arrive, and we're thinking a sense of relief that they're going to take care of this guy, or do something and get him to stop, because he was just really mouthing off. And instead of approaching him, and he kind of walked off, and I thought, oh, they're just going to follow him. Instead of following him, they came over to our game of pickleball, and they said, you're not supposed to be playing pickleball here. This is not the court for that, and it's not allowed. And in my head, I was thinking, are you kidding me? Everybody I play with, I am the youngest, and I'm almost 50. I mean, we've got from 50 to about 70 here playing, and we're getting busted by the cops. And sure enough, we were. He was cool. He was nice enough. But he made sure we understood he was doing us a favor by continuing to let us play pickleball. I thought, Jesus, I've gotten in less trouble trespassing at a skate park during COVID when I was climbing fences and we were going in to skateboard at a skate park that was locked up. We got in less trouble with the police when they arrived there than we were getting for playing a game of pickleball. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever. Well, shortly after that incident, I go to skateboard, and I'm just laughing, thinking, God, that's amazing. We just literally got in trouble with the cops for playing pickleball. Like, it's the most innocent sport, other than the competitive edge that goes with it. This is the most healthy, neighborly sport ever. It's a bunch of neighbors playing pickleball. The name is pickleball, for crying out loud. And we just got busted by the cops for playing a sport you're not allowed to play in this particular area. And I thought that was the funniest thing. But it also kind of made me mad. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That's ridiculous. Here this man is yelling and threatening people and yelling about all kinds of things that make anybody in today's society uncomfortable. And they didn't do anything to him, we got in trouble for playing pickleball. So I thought, my God, what a rebel I feel like. And shortly thereafter, I was back at the skate park with my other rebel friends skateboarding in my 50 and up skateboard gang. And we're having this great session. And I see out of the corner of my eye two of my favorite skate moms, and they've arrived at the skate park. So I run out and we are all exchanging little holiday stories and wishing each other Happy New Year. We hadn't seen each other for the entire span of the holidays. So it was a quick catch up. And two of us, myself and one of the gals, we both play pickleball. And the other one had received a pickleball racket for Christmas. So she starts telling us that she's ready to play. She's got her pickleball racket. Well, we get into the conversation. I mentioned the story about the cops, and we're all dying laughing because we're all skate moms. We've all gotten in trouble trespassing at skate parks. We have got kids that skateboard, husbands, they've both got husbands that both skateboard. You would expect that with that sport. That comes hand in hand with that sport, but not pickleball. So we just have this epic exchange about the game of pickleball. And towards the end of it, we're talking about the various personalities that play. We're talking about the competitive nature of everybody that plays. We're talking about just the people that get all geared out and have the best of everything, and the people that are mean and tell you that they don't want to play with you. And they're very outspoken about it. And we are thinking it's the funniest thing. And I look at my friend who's just received her first pickleball racket, and she's all ready to play. And she had this look on her face, and she said, I don't think I want to play pickleball anymore. And I said, no. It's great and it's fun, and we would have the best time playing. We know another person that plays, and I said the four of us would have a blast because it wouldn't get out of hand. It wouldn't get uberly competitive. We just have to find a place to play. It's when you throw in a lot of other people. You throw in the people that maybe didn't make it as a kid in whatever professional sport they wanted to be players in. Or you get the competitive, egotistical person that thinks they're the best in the universe. And that's a lot of pickleball players. I feel like they all think they're the best. So even though it's a very competitive sport, it brings out kind of the ugly competitive side in me. I absolutely love it. And I can't wait for myself and my skate mom buddies to go to some of these facilities and play King of the Court. Because first of all, I know they're all good. And we are a very unexpected bunch of ladies that can actually do something like pickleball. You look at us, typically I'm in my half skate clothes, half tennis clothes, and you look at them and it's kind of more of the same. We're just an eclectic bunch of ladies, and I think there'd be nothing more fun than for us to go and surprise some of these super diehard pickleballers who have all the gear and all of the equipment and think they're the best and talk the talk, but perhaps don't walk the walk. I think we'll surprise everybody, and we'll probably get to be king of the court, queens of the court when we go to play. And it's fun. I love the idea of being in a 50 and up skateboard gang as well as now a little pickleball gang. With that said, today's special edition, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more about my Skate Naked birthday party I'm throwing myself in several months when I turn 50, as well as this naked pickleballing. Now, I am not comfortable with naked. I have never been. Naked has never been my comfort zone. I've just never been comfortable with naked. And I knew if I had set a goal for myself, because when I go into my 50s, which I can't believe I'm even saying that, will be in August, I want to feel confident. I want to have my body as fit as I can get it to be. I want definition. I've never had muscles before. I want definition. I don't want to be buff. I don't want to be beefy and like weightlifter-ish, but I just want to have a healthy, lean, fit body. And I have never had an ass before. I know that's not true. I had a great ass, and it's it's right around when I first started being comfortable, at least with a smidge bit of nudity. And that's when I relocated. When we left Colorado and ended up in Washington, and I left the car behind, I left everything behind, but I didn't have a car. So I'd walk a trillion miles a day in the rain, but we lived on a 90-degree hill. So I'd walk the hills of Washington in the rain every day. And by God, I ended up with a perfect ass. It was short-lived, but I had a great ass. I got complimented on my ass. It was there. It was perfect. Again, didn't last long, but I know it's obtainable. And I think skating naked gives me a goal, an obtainable goal that I can hit by age 50, by August of this year, August of 2023. So with all of that said, the skate naked, I'm going to leave the naked pickleballing behind. The naked pickleballers, that is something that would make me so uncomfortable, and I think it wouldn't make me feel well. I remember my dad had some friends that used to travel. They'd go to naked resorts. And knowing the friends and the couples that would go, I just thought, what are you doing? Like, you're just sipping cocktails, laying out at the beach naked. And they were all in, I want to say, their 60s and up. And it's not to say the group of skateboarders I skate with were going to look like this amazing crew of naked people. But there's just something, at least there's sort of an element of funny. I guess if you're playing pickleball, and I know the seriousness of playing pickleball and the competitive nature, I don't see doing that naked. Skateboarding, you're gliding along the concrete and you're flowing. It's kind of like dancing on wheels. Whereas if you're playing pickleball, all I can picture is the abrupt stopping of the feet and the way your body jerks around and moves around. And that's just not something I want to see. Please tune in next week, naked or not, for an episode all about the lottery. Please like, follow, share, subscribe. You can find me on YouTube at Adult Chicken, also adultchicken.com, as well as Apple, Spotify podcasts, Adult Chicken, and Instagram, adult_chicken.